Does Koon have no time extensions?
Fold.
And he finds a fold, Jeremy.
He does have the 8 blocker to a straight, which he is going to have occasionally.
Wow. Chidwick all in. Right around what you thought as we see Tollerene waking up to 2 kings here.
I thought we might see a little more. I did. Not too much more. I mean, maybe 40 entries, something like that.
10 seconds. $45,000.
Free bet to 45,000
Nothing
from
I can't
Ben.
see, right? So it's like, let's start at about 280. Okay, thanks. $260.
This is a tricky hand to play in the Negreanu spot pre-flop. You couldn't hate to fold, but
a 4 right away as Negreanu hits the set. Jeremy, and yeah, you're right. Negreanu calls it 29,000, but when you call it a tricky hand to play, one could make the argument it's not so tricky because there's not a lot of flops that don't contain a 4.
sure.
That you need to necessarily proceed all the way with.
So I should say post-flop it plays pretty easy. I mean, there are times you're going to have to peel a flop bet also.
Yeah, the 995 board,
Sure.
something like that.
What I mean by that is there's just not a lot of implied odds. Tollerene's range isn't terribly wide here with Negreanu raising first in. It is only 5-handed. He's getting a decent price. I'm not saying he should fold. I'm saying some people might find a fold there. Good thing he didn't.
He's getting excited is what he's getting as he sees Tollerene fire 30,000 on the flop, and Daniel elects to flat call the 984 rainbow board as a deuce hits the turn.
Because if you are playing it for set value only, you could argue your odds very much might not be there for doing such a thing.
Particularly heads up.
Sure, the shallower you get, obviously you just don't have much implied odds at all. That being said, I mean, Tollerene will, it's not like he only has, you know, 10s or plus here. He's a very capable player. He's going to have some bluffs mixed in.
70,000?
70,000.
And he bets less than half the pot on the turn. And this is a rainbow board. There will be no flush possible on the river, and as such, despite the fact that the 8 and the 9 create some straight draws that may be in Ben's range, do you foresee a flat? As we see indeed Daniel doing just that. You like that line, Jeremy? As opposed to raising here?
So he bet 70,000. I think it only left him 50 behind. Okay.
116 behind.
After the call, he's got 116. Yeah, I like it.
Third check from Daniel. And Ben doesn't realize it, but he's got a hook in his mouth here. And he's getting reeled in to the side of the sport fishing boat.
All in?
Oh, yeah.
Call.
Set.
Overpair and a set, and just like that,
Game then.
Ben Tollerene
The game goes.
sent packing in unceremonious fashion. Eliminated from the 50K main event.
Thanks. See you next time.
Tilston defends against the Dan Smith 24K Open.
What's that?
Do you see mostly locals or
Where I sit, it's mostly like season ticket holders, but depending on who comes to town, like when Edmonton came, there's like 5,000 fans come. Or like Toronto or Buffalo. There's certain cities that bring a lot of
Ace, Jack, 8. Gut shot straight draw for Keith, who checks it over to Smith, who has flopped bottom 2.
But Canadian teams, like actually Chicago, Detroit, Buffalo, Toronto, and Edmonton, they brought tons of fans.
All the people running from the cold.
Yeah.
$10.
35.
35.
A little over half pot size bet. Out of Dan.
As I say, a lot of players are adopting the small bets on the flop. Dan proves me wrong, and he bets about half pot there.
I did see a horse at North Valley today. I was wondering who it belonged to. Didn't know they valeted horses. Tilston makes the call here and turns a queen. So picks up a pair to go with that gut shot straight draw.
Check.
Second check out of Tilston. Smith's not in love with that card.
No, he's not, but he's going to have the best hand, you know, a very large percentage of the time. He definitely has to bet. He needs protection even more now.
Yeah.
Second.
Second heart and a very straighty card. He's got 235 behind.
Expecting to bet,
80,000.
yeah, somewhere a little over half pot here.
What do you do if you're Keith here? Guy that short, committing a third of his remaining stack on the turn after raising pre and firing on the flop. Certainly looks to have Queen 9 beat.
Raise.
Wow. I didn't think he would do that. I thought he would call probably.
I agree. This is very unexpected.
25.
He is putting the pressure on Cowboy Dan, who's going to torch a time extension here. This is a very big decision. He has put Dan all in. Oh, he looks so strong, doesn't it?
It really does. Just thinking of, Dan's obviously has to think about some hands that Tilston might do this with, and if he assumes he would call with a hand like this Queen 9, I think we're much more likely to see a fold, obviously. But if he thinks he's capable of taking a pair that might be the best hand and just sticking it in, wow. This is a tough spot. He bet nearly 1/3 of his stack on the turn. So he bet 80,000 and he has 155,000 left. So the price he's getting is quite good, about 3 to 1.
Aces up, queens up, 9-10, king 10. All the sorts of hands that have him crushed. Tougher call on the money bubble than it is here, I think.
10 seconds.
Yes, without a doubt. It becomes a much easier fold. Yesterday when we had 6 left.
Second extension used by Dan here. And you feel the pain. I had to check ships on the turn. Supposed to have Jackson 8's beat.
Yeah, you know, there's hands like 8x of hearts that might do this. Like I said, I'm a little surprised with a hand that's quite this good. A lot of times just better hands are going to call and all worse hands are going to fold.
I'm sorry, you're surprised that Tilston's hand is quite this good?
Well, yeah, because, so if it's very good, he would shove because he thinks he has the best hand. If it's very bad, he might shove to try to get better hands to fold.
But when it's exactly where it's at,
yes,
you don't expect this, you expect the check
It's kind
call.
of right in the middle. It's going to be good enough of the time, but, you know, the pot is big. There's a lot of money out there, so.
Yeah, a lot more than you probably thought. Called.
Dan's made the call. And he is looking good to double up here. Just needs to dodge an ace, 9, 10, or queen. And the river is a 10. Tilston makes
Yeah,
the
I'll
queen
take it
high
back.
straight.
Good luck, guys.
Oh, Tollerene's limp is going to get pummeled by the ace-7 of hearts.
Yeah, he's raising a lot of those limps.
Jake is.
Yes.
Yeah.
With you know, pretty good holdings. Obviously, ace-7's plenty good for that. One of my favorite dishes. And granted, I don't get out much these days. I have two children. You know, we don't make it out to all these top-notch restaurants on the Strip. But for a long time now, Il Molino, New York,
Smaller chips.
at Caesars.
Yes,
Farm shops,
in
I'm
the
sure.
farm shops. Just hidden away at the top
Yeah.
of the escalator on the left-hand side. It's shocking that they're still there and succeeding, but it's a testament to how good the food is.
It's so good. It is so good. And they have this dish. It's not on the menu. It's always a special. It's the porcini stuffed ravioli, I believe.
Oh, that
That-
sounds decadent.
It is so good. It's like my lifelong probably favorite dish. I hate to hype things so much because now you're only going to be disappointed in it.
You're creating a spicy
Yeah.
rigatoni effect here.
But let me tell you, it is really something special.
How many days of your life would you sacrifice in order to have access to porcini ravioli every day whenever you wanted it?
You know, it's not all that healthy, so I don't know. I don't need to indulge that much, do I?
So then not sacrificing days of your life in order to enjoy it is actually having a double positive effect because
Right,
you're going to
exactly.
live longer by not having it all the time. As we see both players here flopping trip 7s. Enough with your porcini stories. Schindler limped it. Bets 80,000 after the check from Tollerene, who has him out kicked. Here comes the turn. It's an ace. Tollerene's kicker still plays. Second check out of Ben. He's looking to reel some of those Schindler chips across the felt. And a check call of 80K on the Queen 7-7 super dry board does kind of create some concern, does it not? As Jake fires 200K.
We've seen Ben check call pretty liberally, like we saw him just do it with the king deuce. So, you know,
That was a raised pot, though, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Yeah.
There's actually, I think, a little more reason to call in a limp pot because Schindler's range is that much weaker. I wouldn't have been surprised at all if Tollerene raised this flop, but he chose not to this time.
But while his range is weaker, the price is worse because there's less chips in there. As Tollerene check raises to 600,000, 400K for Schindler to call, and now might this look like an ace? I'm not sure. Does Tollerene have a lot of check raises with an ace here?
I
on
don't
the turn?
think. I don't think too many.
So if we take that out of there and we take a queen out of there as well,
Right.
it starts to look a little bit more like a 7 than you want it to, doesn't it?
It's a bluff or a 7. Yeah, it's very polar, as we've talked about before. Maybe like a Jack-10 type hand, something like that.
4 of clubs on the river. When you say Jack-10, let's not forget this was a limp pot pre-flop. Might expect Tollerene to raise it out of the big blind after a Schindler limp on the button with a hand like Jack-10. Certainly if it was King-10 of spades, Jack-10 of spades, which would be big equity holders on the turn, and might check raise. That ace of spades. Those are hands you expect to raise pre, although with balance, we know that that's not always a given. As we see Tollerene putting a beehive's worth of bumblebees out there. 1.5 million chip bet.
Jake obviously knows he's only beating a bluff, but he holds such a strong hand. It's really tough to get away with it, away from this hand. All on.
Schindler says all in. He wants the rest of Tollerene's chips in there as well. I don't think there's a path to a fold here for Ben, right?
No,
Let's
never.
see. Shouldn't this be a snapper?
I think so. Yeah, he just, I guess he likes to think about every decision, but I mean, he's never ever folding.
10 seconds.
I mean, he's not expecting Schindler to do this, honestly. I'm kind of surprised that Schindler is doing this. I would think Schindler's
You
just
mean
going to call.
Tollerene?
Well,
For the
I don't think Tollerene expected Schindler to raise the
Oh, to
river.
raise all in. Okay, right. But I don't think, conversely, Schindler would expect Tollerene to take that long, given the chip situation and his holding.
No, I feel like he thinks he got it slow rolled a little bit, for sure.
I don't know. I feel like walking around the Atlantis in a wine-soaked shirt. That's a guy with a story. That might actually be a nice accessory. Like, what's with that guy? Where was he earlier? That's what I'm thinking as a single woman.
210,000.
Peters limping, and Chidwick, with 8-4 suited, raises it up. And could this be an example of limping, under-repping, and 3-betting for Peters? We know he's not going away, but ace-4, not the strongest of aces.
It's not. I think it's a little weak.
Call.
A little better. You know, he's got up to 40 big blinds now. Also, he has to keep in mind Winter has just 13
Right.
big blinds, so it would be
Check.
a bit aggressive to go all in with this ace-4, I think. He could squeeze in a smaller 3-bet. I don't know how much of a fan I am of that, though. He'd be putting in so much of his stack.
Well, Chidwick, Jeremy, has not flopped a pair. However, he has flopped a flush draw.
10 seconds. Check.
He's moving down in the world, huh?
It goes check, check, and an ace on the turn as Peters. Going to feel a lot more comfortable about what, unbeknownst to him, was the best hand on the flop.
We might see Chidwick take a stab here. He would be checking back a good share of aces. He doesn't have any showdown value. So this card
325,000.
is a good one to represent. But not what he's looking for in this scenario. The hand he's trying to represent, Peter holds in his hand.
And it's going to be a flat call all day, right?
Yeah.
No sense in bloating the pot, potentially getting yourself moved off of this ace-4. 5 seconds.
Call.
Another 650 into the middle after that call, and the river is a 10.
Check.
Quick check from Peters.
We could definitely see a bluff from Chidwick here. Obviously, he has 0 showdown value. He repped the strength pre-flop. He can have all these big pairs, whereas Peters really doesn't have any of them ever. He does have the 8 blocker to a straight, which he is going to have occasionally.
Wow. Chidwick, all in.
And this is an example of him putting max pressure because, partly because Winter has 13 big blinds. So it just applies even more pressure to Peters. It is a tough spot. It's hard to fold top pair. The board is very coordinated. Obviously, there's lots of straights, tons of 2 pairs.
Extension.
And we've seen Peters be not so inclined to fold too quickly a medium to strong hand.
What was the hand he called when Keith Tilston moved all in? It was aces up, right?
It was aces up. I mean, that was pretty strong, but he didn't take very long at all. And I just know from playing with him, I think even in one of these U.S. Poker Open events the other day, he made a pretty light call against Bonomo's all in. with third pair for a huge overbet.
Well, what do you beat? That's what you're always asking yourself in
Right.
this spot. What quotient of the range that you give Chidwick do you have beat? And what quotient don't you have beat? And what's the price you're getting?
Extension.
And was that a prepay on 2 extensions? I think it was.
I think it
He
was.
still had 15 seconds left, so.
It's hard to imagine what the guy could have. It doesn't have decide has showdown value. Checks the flop.
Boy, look at Chidwick. This is brutal. 3 minutes of sitting there with 8 high. Praying that Peter's hand will hit the muck. 20 seconds left. No more time extensions.
I'm going to lean towards Peter's calling. That's my guess.
10 seconds.
Just from what I've seen from him in the past.
5. He lays down the winner. Huge turning point. Back at our final table, ace-9-6. Koon has out-flopped Pollak. Benjamin min-raised the button. Koon flatted. And now has the ace, looking up at 115K bet, which he calls. Pollak with the only spade. And the ace pairs on the turn, and that's actually going to embolden Pollak, perhaps.
Check.
A little bit tougher for Koon to have an ace now as it goes check, check. And queens full on the river for Pollak. Trip aces for Koon. Could this be it?
It definitely could be. I think this is going to go
Is there a path to a fold for Jason Koon?
500K, I'm going to guess, and then all in. And I'm not sure if Koon's going to be able to fold this one.
500,000.
You nailed it. 500,000, the exact amount of the bet from Jason Koon, and without question, Pollak's going to be raising. Koon only has 995 behind, and you could certainly see 1.5 total coming out of Pollak. What a river.
10 seconds.
And Pollak should be able to find some bluffs here. That's easier said than done.
Well, he's burning a time extension here. And I like this. Because one would expect, if Pollak has a decision, for him to have to use a time extension before making it. And clearly there is no real decision. He knows exactly what he's going to do here.
On in.
All in.
Jeez. Wow. What in the Wow, 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 wow. Gotta think quick. Gotta think quick.
Does Koon have no time extensions?
Fold.
And he finds a fold, Jeremy.
An ace?
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to have my heart broken right now.
Good fun. With an ace?
I did.
Wow, that was
I
a
reverse you.
Wow.
great fold.
Wow. One of the worst trips.
Good fun.
Every time I
30
think
seconds, good for. I mean, obviously
I've-
that's your first instinct.
reach the threshold for being impressed by Jason Koon, he pushes the envelope even further.